Hi YouTube, it's Kathy, and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up for May 31st through June 6th, aka the 5th round of the Queer Lit Readathon. This week I read 7 things, I watched 5 shows, I watched 1 movie, and I listened to 1 book. I said 7 things instead of 7 books because 2 of those items are actually webcomics. First, I started out this week by reading Coffee Days Whiskey Nights. This is a poetry anthology by Cyrus Parker, who is a non-binary author who is also apparently married to Amanda Lovelace. They write very similarly in that they have very short poems that take up an entire page, although I was reading it in an ebook ARC format and it was all just kind of crammed together, and you could only tell it was a different poem because the text was a slightly different color of gray. The formatting of the ebook definitely could have been better because it all just kind of jumbled together, and I only realized at the end that it was meant to be different poems. Unfortunately, this was not my favorite thing I read this week, but it did check off the poetry and nonfiction squares on my bingo board, so hooray! Next I went on to read Left on Base. This is a webcomic that I found on the Queer Comics database. I'll link that down below again. It's a great resource. This is about a group of teenagers that play baseball. Most of them are queer. There's lots of different types of representation. About 100 or so updates so far, and I found it entertaining. The other webcomic I also read the entirety of, and that's Love Circuits. Unfortunately, the entirety is only 23 updates, and the author stopped updating about 3 years ago, so I don't think it's ever coming back. This one is about a girl who lives sometime in the future and just had a birthday party and has recently broken up with a boyfriend, and somebody, as kind of a joke and kind of as an actual birthday wish fulfillment, sends her this robot that I'm quite sure is meant to be a sex robot. But she kind of gets a little bit freaked out by receiving this and basically starts having like a friendship with this robot. At least that's how far it got in the amount of updates there are. This one checked off the disability square for me because the main character uses a mobility aid as well as has a service dog, but it's a service dog robot because again, we're in the future and it's kind of fun. I then went on to read the novella Fina. This is about 2 characters that have recently broken up. They both work at the same crappy retail job at basically an IKEA, but it's not called IKEA. And our protagonist gets called into work that day, which sucks because she changed all of her shifts around so she wouldn't have to be on shift at the same time as her ex, who, by the way, is non-binary, so there's lots of discussion of customers being absolute shits and not using the correct pronouns and that type of thing. Anyway, on this shift, somebody's grandmother goes missing, and then that's when we find out that sometimes in this store, interdimensional portals open up, and employees are forced to go through them and find the people that have wandered into them. It's a fun adventure. It's very much fuck capitalism, so if you're doing the Fuckathon next month and need a book for that, consider picking this one up because it was a good time. From there, I moved on to the Queer Lit Readathon group read, which was This Is What It Feels Like by Rebecca Barrow. This is about a trio of friends who used to be in a band in high school. They basically just graduated high school at the beginning of this book, but a couple of years ago the band kind of broke up. The reasoning behind this being that one of the characters had an alcohol problem, one of the other characters realized that she was pregnant, and she realized that about a month after her boyfriend had been killed one night while walking home from a party, and our teen mom basically said, "You can't be around my child because I have to keep her safe." This obviously caused a rift in the friendship, this caused a rift in the band, but there's a big band competition this summer that they all want to enter, but they can only really enter if they work together. This book was from the 3 different perspectives of the different bandmates, and they were just wonderful, complex human beings. There were a couple of little romances in there, which I thought were great, and they heavily discussed trust and communication and all of that type of thing. There are also occasional chapters by this character named Elliot. Elliot was the boyfriend who has previously passed away, so all of his chapters are in the past, and unfortunately they didn't really do anything for the narrative. They basically just gave you background on how much he really did love Dio, which we kind of figured, and about Hannah's alcoholism, which obviously we didn't need these other chapters to know about. And his chapters didn't tie up in any form of satisfying way, which is the only reason I didn't give this a full 5 stars. Speaking of 5 stars, I then went on to read The Disasters by M.K. England. This is about 4 characters who have gone to an academy in space and basically washed out on the first day of being there, and we don't know why each of them has been kicked out as we start, but we learn that along the way. However, when they're boarding their shuttle back to Earth, somebody takes over the space station they're on, and things just go sideways from there. This is a very action-packed adventure with this misfit crew of POC queer characters, and I just loved it. Everyone had their own little personality quirks, they all fit together really well as a unit to go up against this big bad, and I just adored it. The last book I read this week was Twice in a Lifetime by Jodie Griffin. This is a female-female romance between a boss and a subordinate. About 15 years previously they had met, and our main character did get a crush on the woman who eventually becomes her boss, but she was married at the time, so obviously didn't do anything about it. Her husband has since passed, and she still has this big attraction to this woman she's now working under. Quite literally sometimes. This fulfilled the prompt of reading a book about a woman over 40, and that's why I picked it initially, because it specifically fulfilled this prompt. However, when I came to read it, I had a little bit of trepidation about reading it at this time, because all I really knew about it was about two cops falling in love, and this is not the current climate for that type of thing. However, our main character is Jewish, our love interest is black. This was not really about working as a police officer. This could have easily been about like somebody who works in social work or that type of thing, and the plot would have been exactly the same. So because this wasn't just two white ladies falling in love and shooting bad guys, that's why I was able to continue with it. I ended up really enjoying it. However, the synopsis tends to tell you something that happens like at the 90% mark, which doesn't make any sense for publishing. Just gonna throw that out there. Moving on to what I watched this week, we ended up only watching one episode of Scandal, and that's because we watched it, I think, Sunday, and then some personal things happened. And then my roommate wouldn't have been able to pay attention to Scandal because she really needed funny things in her life, so we moved on to funny things. Notably, there were a bunch of episodes of Kim's Convenience. I don't know where she is in this series. It's the type of show where I can just sit down, watch a couple of episodes, get up, do whatever else I need to do. It is a very fun show. The family dynamics are really interesting, and it was very easy to pick up on, even coming in. I think I was at least a couple of seasons behind, but I still really enjoyed the characters. Of course, The Simpsons is often playing somewhere in the house, so I'm sure that I absorbed little bits and pieces of episodes here and there. On Friday, the 5th season of Queer Eye dropped, so my plan for the day was to sit down and watch every single episode, and that's absolutely what I did. Of course, it made me cry. That's what Queer Eye does. It's wonderful. I also like it because I can easily go back and watch those episodes slower and one by one and continue to enjoy the love that these people just heap upon their heroes. After that, I was apparently just continuing to live my best gay life and watched a bunch of episodes from the 4th season of RuPaul's Drag Race. This is a wonderful season. There are so many queens in this season that I still remember to this day. Obviously, it's a rewatch for me, but I was enjoying it. My roommates also ended up either listening to it or sitting down and watching it at points, and there were a couple of things I had to explain. We also got to the point where somebody was kicked off the show because they broke the rules, and I had to explain what rules they had broken because the show does not really tell you at all. So that was an entertaining time. The one movie we watched this week is from the very long list of movies we have where we're like, oh, I haven't watched that in so long, but I really remember enjoying it, and that movie was The Mask, which, if you're not already aware, is Cameron Diaz's first movie. The funny thing that I pointed out about this movie is that in it, Jim Carrey is younger than everybody in this house is now, which is so weird to think about because we watched this movie as kids. Also, you know, just a 10 or so year age gap between Diaz and Carrey. No big deal. If you've never seen it before, this nice guy Stanley Ipkiss one day finds this mask that when he puts it on completely changes his personality. It is very much a comic book movie, which makes it very fun to see the kind of little comic book touches around his apartment or just in the backgrounds of things and the little tropes that they throw in there. It's a lot of fun. The audiobook I listened to this week was not on my Queer Lit Readathon TBR, but I just needed an audiobook for the week and I decided to pick a queer one, and that one is The Past and Other Things That Should Stay Buried by Shaun David Hutchinson. This book is dual perspective, and we start out with Nino, whose family owns a funeral home and whose ex-best friend has recently died. He is helping to prepare the makeup on his ex-best friend July when she just wakes up. Obviously, this is not supposed to happen. There's no question about this. She's dead. There was an autopsy. They took out pieces of her body. Like, she is dead. Why is she now reanimated? This is an exploration of their friendship and what went wrong and miscommunications and July just being a homophobic asshole at points. She's one of those homophobes that loves her gay best friend but also says very problematic things and doesn't seem to realize that they're very problematic. Such as at one point when Dino got a boyfriend, she was like, oh, so how's your girlfriend doing? Which in itself is incredibly rude, but is even more problematic when you realize that the boy that Dino is dating is trans. Through this you get this mystery of why she's woken up, why she's a walking corpse. She continues to decompose, so that causes some issues. And while he's trying to hide her from everybody else because they don't know if this is a permanent thing or not, obviously many shenanigans ensue. This book really talks about how the people in our lives affect us, and I very much enjoyed it for that. That's it for this week. If you read, watch, or listen to any of these, let me know about a down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't feel like leaving a comment but want to make sure that I know you were here, just leave me an emoji or a smiley face if you're on your keyboard. Some of you have asked if there's a way to support me, and I recently set up a Ko-fi account, so that information is down below, as well as the link to my Amazon wishlist. Yesterday I also released my vlog for the Queer Lit Readathon, so that will be linked down below, as well as the collaboration I did with a bunch of other queer booktubers where we all recommended queer books, so I will link that down below as well. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye!